Hey guys, Jim here. On to a new acquisition, something that I've been waiting for a good amount of time on, a couple of months to get my hands on one of these, and I'm very, very excited with how it turned out and how the whole process went. This is a Matt Cucchiara Dorado, and for those of you that don't speak Spanish, that means the Dorado. Ah, you see what I did there. All right. So the whole deal behind this is what Matt is doing. You cannot order a custom knife from Matt at this point. When I talked to him, he said he hasn't taken a custom order in years, and there's a great likelihood that he won't be taking any custom orders in the future. It's just, he's one of those guys that is so in demand that he couldn't possibly fulfill all the orders for all the people that would want one of his knives. But what we have seen him do is offer the Dorado in a myriad of different variations. What you can do is you can order a basic stage 1 Dorado, which will be plain blasted titanium with no embellishments, nothing done. And I think, I don't really want to guess on the pricing, but I think they were somewhere around $375 if I'm not mistaken. I could be off by a few dollars, but generally $400 or a couple dollars less. Then he has various stages where he's taking these mid-tech knives and he is then customizing them. So you could think of it as buying a knife from someone and sending it to one of the many knife pimpers out there and saying, hey, I want you to heat treat this, or I want you to add grooves or holes or this or that. And basically you're getting the man whose name is on the knife. He will actually be doing the work instead of somebody else. So it's kind of a neat system that he's come up with there. And you can buy through various dealers. I know that Eric and Tony over at north-to-south-knives.com, they've been getting some knives from Matt. I believe the guys over at Recon One have been getting a fair amount of them. And you'll find them in various stages at different dealers. And of course, you can always try contacting Matt, and if he has any there, he can then probably embellish to whatever degree you want. But I want to be very clear, this is a mid-tech knife. Now, on my knife, it's safer to say that it leans a little more toward custom than mid-tech, because I was fortunate that he had a Dorado sitting there when I contacted him. Well, actually, he didn't when I first contacted him. It was, well, in a few months and this and that. And when the time came up, he says, okay, I've got a Dorado. Are there any specific things that you'd like to do? I said, well, for me to have my first Cucchiara knife, it's got to have his signature fizz, which obviously replicates the look of, seltzer water or soda fizz throughout the entire knife. I said, but I want to go a little extreme. I said, would it be possible to add the fizz to the blade? And what I initially wanted was to the spine of the blade. And he actually took it a step further, and he brought the fizz. I wanted to get a nice amount of fizz throughout the whole knife. So he did the entire frame instead of little areas or spots. And then he brought it out into the blade itself. I love the touch because when the knife is closed, and look how smooth that is, when the knife is closed, it really completes the look. It is gorgeous. As far as the clip options, you can get a standard spring clip. On the regular knife, I opted for the 3D contoured titanium clip, also anodized and also done with the fizz treatment. And one of the things that I really, really wanted to have done was he has a beveled edge that runs all the way around the 6AL4V titanium slabs, and they are slabs. This is a very, very thick knife. I wanted him to take that bevel and give it a polish. So he did the bevel polish, and he went all the way around on the outside edges as well. So you've got this beautiful polished finish, which adds a bit of a jewelry-like aspect to the knife. And then he says, I want to do a little surprise for you. Do you care about the backspacer? I said, no, do whatever you want to do. He says, I want to do something kind of special and kind of cool for you. And he surprised me with a Timascus backspacer that features a lanyard hole. Now, I don't know if any other or how many other Dorados have any type of backspacer with a lanyard. I haven't seen one. And I love the fact that he chose to do it in Timascus. That was a really nice little addition. And he didn't even charge me for that. I thought that was really, really cool of him. We did add one rather expensive option because he will give you the option of either having washers or bearings. And I said, listen, I'm buying a knife from one of the premier flipper manufacturers, or I should say maker. And I'm sorry, guys, I say manufacturers a lot because of the business I'm in, but these are not manufactured products. They're made by the individual. And I said, you know, if I'm going to get a knife made by one of the flipper kings, one of the first guys to really master a flipper, I want it to be as fast and as smooth as possible. Now, you can get a basic Dorado without the bearings, and go watch Terra Fanatic's great video on his. They flip like crazy. Whether you get bearings or not, they're silky smooth and they flip fast. And the other request I made was that it have a stronger detent, because after watching Terra Fanatic's video, he was like, yeah, the detent's kind of weak. I wish I had a stronger detent, but yet somehow, even with a weak detent, it flipped like crazy. And that was one of the cool things about watching his video, was watching him flabbergasted at the fact that it had a weaker detent, but it still flipped like a crazy fast knife. So I've got a stronger detent in mind. He hand-tuned my detent, did this great blade work. This is a 3.5-inch VG10 blade. Great steel. It's not a very expensive steel when you start looking at, you know, your exotics. Obviously, it's not in the category of S90 or 3V or S110 or, you know, 6K or anything like that. But it's a good performing steel that holds a pretty decent edge. It's going to dull about as fast as an S35 VN. You still got great anti-corrosive properties, which you guys know me. It's not a big deal. I'm always using my Aegis EDC knife care solution, so I'm not really worried about anything I have rusting, but it is a good corrosion-resistant steel. This is a heavy knife. You've got a very, very thick build here, and let me give you a comparison in sizes here to another very popular 3.5-inch knife that I own. That's the Curtis F3. Dave is famous for having a really, really short handle, so this is going to look a lot bigger than Dave's knife. But if we go up here, pivot to pivot, you'll see the blades are the same, and it's just the handle that's going to be the difference. But now we look at it from this angle, if I can get the knife to stand up, and we see there is a tremendous difference. And the F3 is already a stout built knife. And as you see, the Dorado, much, 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 much thicker. Little thicker in the blade stock, but definitely a lot more thick in the titanium. And one of the nice benefits to that, besides the feel in the hand, it's a nice solid feel in the hand, is you have a lot of thickness here. If you want to do, you know, because it's really a do-it-yourself kit when you get the basic one, and you want to do some deep carving and deep milling into this, you've got a lot of material to dig into, so that's a really cool option. Blade centering is fantastic. Everything looks great. It's a nice, clean, pass-through design. Your only points of contact are one point here at the back spacer and then at the pivot. Nothing else. It's a very simplified design. He's got the perfect amount of tension on the lock bar. He's done a great job on the relief cutout here. It's not too much. You're not adding a lot of friction on the blade as it's closing or opening. He just does a wonderful finish job. So there are a lot of things on this knife that other people don't have on theirs, but that's the cool thing, is there are things that I don't have on my knife that they have on theirs. So every time you get one of these, it's going to be slightly different. To wildly different. You can do so many different options here. I really wanted the bearings, and I'm glad that I did it, because this thing, and if I just barely touch it, you cannot get it to not go to full lock. It is so smooth, it's crazy. And when you really think about it, and you really want to get a good flip, it is fast. And then boom, it just drops closed. This is my best action. This even beats out my Hoback Quayback, which is pretty impressive because this does not have the Hoback rolling detent. But it's still just, when I say silky smooth, that is the absolute best way I can describe it. It feels as smooth in its operation as my Rockstead Shin, except This is a crazy fast flipper. Whether you're going to spend the smaller amount of money and buy the basic version, which is still a great EDC knife, or you're going to go for the gusto and really do some crazy stuff with a knife pimper, do it yourself, or have Matt do something, you're getting into a very solid built, almost overbuilt kind of knife. I feel that yes, it is a pretty knife. There are a lot of aspects to it that other people won't like. It is a bit, listen, I've got my utilitarian knives. I've got my everyday carry kind of knives in this size range that really aren't overly ornate, even though they have a certain beauty to them. We'll use this again for size comparisons. I do jump back and forth. For a time, I will buy very utilitarian knives, and then I will go off and buy something or have something made that is a bit fancier and prettier and maybe dressier. And that's what I wanted to achieve here. So here's your size comparison to a Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and a Kirby Lambert Orion MGT. So it really does, it sits in that 3.5-inch range very well. Thickness compared to a Lambert. Lamberts are very thick knives. And the Cucchiara is actually going to be thicker. Your eyes tend not to see it so much because of this bevel and the polish that was put on it. But this is actually a thicker knife. Matt was an absolute dream to work with. Most of the communication we had was through text message. I assume it was easier for him. It was certainly easier for me. And throughout the process, he kept going, hey, would you like me to do this, or you want to do that, or you want a carbon fiber clip, or you want to do this, or you want to do that? He was just so agreeable to creating something that I wanted, that would be unique for me. And in this day and age, we're seeing that less and less with knife makers. A lot of knife makers are, and I'll tell you, I just had a recent experience which greatly disappoints me with a maker that I really like a lot and I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I had a chance to get one of his knives. He was showing it to me one night in a text message. And I said, hey, has anybody claimed it? He's like, no. I said, I'll take it. I didn't even care what it cost. I'll take it. And it was beautiful the way it was. And through the course of the conversation, he says, well, I'm going to go all dark with it. And I said, really? I said, I've already got a couple knives. My Holback is like that. My Jeff Vandermeulen, and I've already got the dark look, the dark stone wash. I said, I really like the satin look that you've got going on there while you're building it. He's like, no, it's the first one I'm building like this. It's got to be this certain way for my mind's eye to really appreciate it. And I said, no, I don't want to keep duplicating the same kind of look throughout my collection. So I had to pass on it. And this is the kind of thing we're talking, that probably would have been in the $1,200 to $1,400 range. To have a maker say, no, I'm going to only make it this one way. When I'm sitting there going, shut up and take my money, it's disappointing. I still have a great respect for the guy. I'm still going to own one of his knives. But I was greatly disappointed that I lost the opportunity only because he saw it one way and I saw it another. And that's fine. You got to realize these guys at the core of this, yes, they're machinists. Yes, they're knife makers. But at the core of this, they're artists. And an artist is going to do certain things certain ways sometimes that pleases them. And that's fine. And I understand that. Matt is the kind, and I'm sure he's like that with some projects, but he says, you know what? I want to make this however you want it done. So everything that you see here was a product of he and I working together in a way, communicating back and forth, getting that awesome fizz in the blade, which he does not typically do. And I don't know if I'm sure he's done it before, but it's certainly not often seen. Nice finish on the blade. One of the things he's become known for is his hand rub satin blades. And he says, as of the last knife that I did with that, I am never doing it again. He goes, it kills my neck, and I'm no longer going to be offering that satin finish. So what I have here is a nice light stone wash, which, while it may not be as pretty, it allows me to use this blade a little more guilt-free. Because the stone wash will hide any light marks and scratches that it gets. And at the end of the day, you guys know me, if it's not going to be used, I'm not going to keep it in my collection. period. Every knife I own is carried. Every knife I own is used. It's cut. It's doing something. So I'm kind of happy that it turned out that way. There are no real nits to pick. I mean, this is one of the rare instances where there's nothing about the knife, how it's designed, how it's made, that I would change. Everything is contoured beautifully for comfort. There isn't even a sharp edge here when you disengage the lock. Everything is done. It feels great in the hand. It looks great to the eye. The fit and finish is nothing short of spectacular. The operation, as I've said a million times, is liquid smooth. It is a wonderfully made product. Now, I paid a premium price for it. Keep in mind, this is not the $300, $400, $500, $600 variation. You know, the prices go up the more things you add. The bearings alone was adding $100 to the cost of the knife, but I felt it was important for me. Love the flipper tab. It's nice and smooth, no sharp edges. He's done a great job. Now, the pocket clip, perfect. Great retention. I've already carried this a couple of times. Great retention. It's not a cheap, inexpensive looking clip. It is an expensive 3D machine clip that looks like it belongs on a knife made to this level. There is one thing, if I had to say there was one thing that I wasn't overly crazy about, and I think it really falls more on me than on Matt. And I believe that I was just so excited to get a knife made by him that I didn't want to start shouting out uber specific things. What I had in my mind, because I told him, I said, you know, I love your greens and your purples and your blues. It's a rich, saturated color. I'm like, do what you want. You know, I said, I want the fizz. I want the fizz on the blade. I want the polished bevel. I said, but beyond that, whatever you want to do, you do. And he chose this blue. I had in my eye, and I should have been specific, and I thought I was, but maybe I most likely wasn't. I wanted that rich, royal, deep blue that he does so well. Instead, what I got is kind of a baby blue, kind of a sky blue. Now, it does transition. It starts off a little more of a royal blue here, and it gets lighter and then gets darker. And that was something that he had told me about before he ever delivered it, you know. I want to be 100% fair. I knew everything that was going on with this between conversations with him and him sending me text pictures of the knife in progress. So it does go from a darker blue into a lighter. It goes in and out of the color range, which is trickier to do. It is fancier. It is cooler. But it's really a light baby blue overall. And I would have preferred a more richly saturated, deeper blue. But too late for that. I saw the pictures. I approved it. He sent me the pictures and I went, boom, I love it. Send it out. So, you know, that's on me. The next one I do, I'm going for one of his deep, rich, saturated greens or purples or blues or something, because I know now this will not be the last Dorado I own. This is just awesome. And I do plan on getting one of the lesser expensive plain Jane versions, because what a great knockaround tank of an EDC knife that's going to be. Now, again, as I mentioned, it is weighty. It's not overly heavy. I haven't put it on a scale or anything. Like I said, I don't keep a scale in my house. I'm not a cocaine dealer. But I'm going to have to say it's somewhere around the range of 6.5 to 7 ounces, like pulling out my Bodega, which is a bigger knife. But this is very, very thick on the titanium and a nice thick blade on there, too. You guys know I love recurve blades. It has a sex appeal to it. One of the things I really respect about Matt is how he can create a clean flow. Nice soft lines, a clean flow, and that flow of the design transitions from the handles into the blade shape almost perfectly. Notice how he's brought the spine of the blade up with this kind of hump here. It's not straight, it's not sloped down. It comes up, and it's almost sexy the way those curves come together. Then he creates a dramatic swedge on the top of the blade there. Nice high grind, high bevel on there. Perfectly done, perfectly symmetrical from one side to the other. There's just no inconsistency in this knife. And that's why I am very proud to have this in my collection and why it's probably never going to go anywhere. And it's hard to say that. You know, we're all a little bit fickle when it comes to our knife collections. But I could tell you that this is most certainly one that I plan on keeping for a very, very long time. The precision in which it was designed, the way it was executed, the finish work, the liquid smooth operation. There are very few things in this world that you can expect perfection from. And I honestly feel that Matt nailed it. So while it's unfortunate that none of us are going to be getting a custom from him, at least we have these great mid-techs that we can either customize ourselves to a random modifier that we send it to, or maybe, just maybe, if you're lucky enough, Matt himself may do something really, really cool for you. So it's certainly worth dropping him a note and saying, hey, I saw a cool video on a cool knife. I'd like to do something kind of like that. And maybe he'll surprise you. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try to get a few more videos out as quickly as I can. I've been a bit backlogged. I'm going to try and get that taken care of. Talk to you guys later.